I see it pretty often in Facebook groups, on the internet, and maybe even in personal conversations, but someone will say, I found an arrowhead. And they are on cloud nine. It's like they won the lottery or something, because they'll say things like, I have never found an arrowhead in my life. And then they show you maybe something like this.
At first glance, your heart might get a little excited. You think, oh yeah. Then you turn it over. Oh no, it's probably just natural.
And you have to tell them, I don't really think that's an artifact. I don't think that's been worked. I know this because it has happened to me many times. I'm all excited, and then someone says, that's a rock. And then I ask an archaeologist, and they say, well, that's just a rock. It's just a geofact. It's not an artifact. And sometimes it really is a projectile point. Sometimes it really is an artifact.
So you're walking along, you've been walking for an hour, then you see something like this. And you know that that's the right material. You can see that it has been worked. It's a beautiful piece of stone. You also see that it's broken. Bummer, but exciting nonetheless. Pretty.
How do you know if something is an artifact? How do you know that it is handmade, maybe hundreds or thousands of years ago? What do you look for? I guess I would consider myself a beginner. I'm not an absolute beginner. So maybe just a few little things that I've learned I can pass along and help somebody else. Artifacts are well made because these folks, their lives depended on their tools working and working well. Another thing that I go on is the patina. Does it look brand new? Or does it look like it's been in the dirt? Does it look like it's worn down just a little bit? If it shows some use and some wear, then it has a little bit of patina to it, then it's probably an artifact. But if it's very bright and shiny, like these, then it's not an artifact. Now, it might be a replica, something that is crafted well by a really good flint napper, then, I mean, that's a good thing. The word flint napping, flint being a type of stone, and nap, the idea is nibbling at the stone. And so when you look at an arrowhead, a projectile point, in order to get that sharp edge, the edge looks like the stone has been nibbled on with tiny, usually tiny, but sometimes a little bit bigger, nibbles on the rock. So that would be one thing that you could look for. Does the edge of it look like it's been nibbled on to make it sharp? You might buy Arrowhead in an antique store. I was in Arizona and I was in a kind of an antique souvenir store, and this guy told me that there was a Native American in the area that made these arrowheads. What I was thinking is I was going to use them because I hunt with stone points. I thought, well, I'll take these home, and they were very cheap, and I'll use them for my practice arrows. And I showed some of those points to a guy that is a really good flint napper. He looked at them for a while and he said, these were made in China. It's interesting because sometimes someone will come up with an arrowhead. They say this is an arrowhead, and it looks just like the souvenir ones that you find in a lot of shops. There's no nibbling on the edges whatsoever. It's been shaped into an arrowhead-like form. It has a certain value as a souvenir, but it's not an artifact. Another thing that you're looking for is conchoidal fracturing. Now, the word conchoidal is a word that has the idea of muscle-like. Not this kind of muscle, but the kind of muscle that is like a clam. So there's a shape like this rock here. This is a conchoidal fracture. And that's what you're looking for with a lot of projectile points. So if you find a piece of flint or chert or obsidian and it has those conchoidal fractures all along the nibbling edges, then it's a really good chance that you found yourself a really nice artifact. I've had people show me arrowheads that they inherited from a family member. They have some authentic arrowheads, and then maybe mixed in with those are some that are more modern replicas. And you know, the thing is, if you have some artifacts and you have some replicas, don't put them in the same box. It would be very helpful to whoever comes after you to know that these are the ones that are the replicas from a souvenir store, and these are the ones that were dug up in a field or were found in a creek. Here's what I would say. If you see something, if you find something. Most states have an area in their Department of Natural Resources that explores artifacts. Generally, you can take those quote-unquote hopefuls, and oftentimes the archaeologists will be willing to take a look at what you have. What I've done before is I take pictures, really good pictures of what I find, and I send them off to archaeologists. And I'm pretty disappointed sometimes because what I think is an artifact and what they think is an artifact are oftentimes two different things. Still, it's good to know what you actually have. This is what I use when I go deer hunting. Now you can see that this one has a little bit of dirt in the tiny little crevices where it's been flint napped. And that's because I shot at a deer and it was exactly where it should have been, but it was low and it hit the dirt. Yeah, you can tell that this has been in the dirt. This one has not been in the dirt, but you can see that these are beautiful. They are finely made. They are extremely sharp, but they're for hunting purposes and they're not artifacts. Something else that you can look for when you're looking at artifacts or potential artifacts is look at the places where there's damage. So as you can see, the different color there. And unfortunately, I think I'm the one who did that. I was digging in a river and I found this, but I think my shovel found that and broke it. Now, I'm proud to have this as an artifact. It is authentic, but it's a little bit of a heartbreak. When you're digging with a shovel, you don't know what kind of damage you might be doing. Even though these are broken, I love them, and they can be dated. I save everything I find. So this is another broken artifact, found it in a field. It has the evidence of working. It's the right kind of material, conchoidal fracturing, no way of dating it. You can see it has some patina to it. Same thing with this. Has a little bit of damage, but it definitely has patina. It's got some very fine napping. Oh, just amazing how that is. Fine detail.
Is that something or is that nothing? It is something. Something nice.
Same thing here. There's a little bit of damage right there. Once in a while you find something that isn't nice material like this, but when you look at it on the edge, you can see that it was worked. And so I save it. Was that a preform, something that you make a blank and then you travel with it? Maybe you go on a trading mission and you're going to fashion it a little bit more later. It's been suggested to me that this also is a preform. Now, I don't buy that theory, but it's possible. But again, it's been worked both sides. Scraper, and this one is a serrated scraper. You can see the serrations there. So this would have been a very useful tool. Another scraper. It has some very nice napping on it.
So you just come along and all of a sudden you see something that looks interesting. And you think, okay, well, that might be something. And then you say, oh yeah, that was worked on both sides. All right, I like it. I'll take it home.
Probably a thumb scraper of some kind. This looks to be some kind of a slate-like material. It's not the best material, but I found it. I like it. It can be dated because of the style, because of this base. And then I have just some pieces of flint. This, I believe, is obsidian. This I picked up out in Nebraska, and I don't know exactly what the material is. Maybe somebody can tell me in the comment section. But wow, look at the way that has fractured. Beautiful. And this also came from Nebraska. I imagine that it's a big flake. It's probably a tool, used as a tool some way or another. It's been napped a little bit there. It definitely has patina. This is a beautiful point, and it came from Nebraska, and it definitely shows some signs of being in the ground, and the patina is amazing, and the workmanship on this is very evident. It's one of my favorite pieces. This is a modern flake. I was down at Flint Ridge and Nether's farm, and I just saw that laying on the ground. So what happened there was somebody was there and they were kind of playing around, doing a little bit of flint napping, and they just left this flake. And that's so typical of what somebody might have done 1,000 years ago. Go someplace, find some flint, but it's so big. Why do you want to carry the whole thing back? So just chip off some pieces, lighten the load a little bit, and take the rest of it back and finish up your beautiful points later on back at your camp. Now, if you've watched all the way to the end, then you're eaten up with this as much as I am. I love this kind of stuff. And so I just encourage you to get out there and look. Now, it takes a while to find an artifact. Unless you have a really hot spot, a real honey hole, I look for an hour before I find anything. That's my formula. It takes at least an hour to find some, maybe 2 hours sometimes. So don't get discouraged, just keep on hunting, because this is the way that we learn about our history. Take care, good luck.